If you're tired of staring at your sluggish Windows machine, dealing with endless updates, privacy nightmares, or just wanting something fresh and free, stop right there. What if I told you there's a Linux distro that feels like home right out of the box? No tech wizardry required. I'm talking about Linux Mint, the absolute best beginner-friendly Linux distro out there. I've used it for 4 solid years as my daily driver coming from Mac OS, and it made my switch to Linux a breeze. But now I've moved to CachyOS for more speed and tinkering, yet I still shout from the rooftops that Mint is king for newbies. Stick around as I break down why, compare it to other popular distros, share my personal war stories, and help you avoid common pitfalls. Let's dive in. All right, let's start with the star of the show, Linux Mint. If you're coming from Windows or Mac like I was, Mint feels familiar from the get-go. It's based on Ubuntu, but with a polished twist that makes it more approachable. The Cinnamon desktop environment is a game changer. It's intuitive, customizable, and snappy, especially on modern hardware like mine. When I first switched from Mac OS 4 years ago, I was nervous. I had tons of music production work in Ableton Live on my Mac, and let's be real, Ableton doesn't play nice on Linux without some hacks. Plus, transferring files between my phone and Mac was seamless, but on Linux, not so much at first. But Mint made everything else so easy that I powered through. Out of the box, it just works. Drivers installed automatically, Wi-Fi connected without a hitch, and the interface looked like a blend of old school Windows and Mac, which I loved as someone who's bounced between both. One of the biggest wins, ease of use. No need to dive into the terminal if you don't want to, though I did, because Mint lets you learn at your own pace. Updating your system? The Update Manager is a dream. It's a simple GUI that notifies you of updates, lets you pick what to install, and handles everything without cryptic commands. I've broken my setup multiple times tinkering with libraries or drivers, like that one time I tried updating audio drivers for better music production and ended up with a black screen. Hours on Google and forums later, I fixed it. But with Mint's Timeshift tool, I could have just rolled back to a previous snapshot in minutes. Timeshift creates system backups automatically, so when you inevitably mess up, hey, we all do, you're not starting from scratch. And software? The software manager is like an app store on steroids. Search, install, and go. No hunting for .deb files or repositories. Coming from Mac where everything's in the app store, that felt natural. My AMD GPU worked flawlessly right away. No driver headaches. But if you've got NVIDIA hardware, watch out. Mint handles it better than most, but you might need to install proprietary drivers from the driver manager. It's still way easier than on other distros though. Some of the pros of Mint: super familiar interface, everything works out of the box, tools like Update Manager, Timeshift, and Software Manager make life easy. It's stable, based on Ubuntu LTS for long-term support, and you can tinker without being forced into the terminal. The cons? It's not the snappiest on older hardware, and if you crave bleeding edge features, you might outgrow it like I did after 4 years. Installation is where Mint shines for beginners. Download the ISO from the official site, burn it to a USB with something like Rufus or Etcher, and boot from it. The installer is graphical and straightforward. Pick your language, keyboard, time zone, and partition your drive, or let it auto-detect alongside Windows for dual boot. No command line nonsense. It took me under 30 minutes my first time, and boom, I was up and running. Compare that to other distros and you'll see why Mint wins. We'll dive deeper into comparisons next, but spoiler, many require more steps, like manual partitioning or post-install tweaks, which can scare off newbies. Now, let's talk alternatives. I've tried dozens over the years. Fedora with GNOME, Pop! OS, Zorin, Endeavor OS, Vanilla, Arch, Manjaro, TinyCore, Omega, FunOS, Ubuntu, Debian, Parrot OS, Kali, and more. Some are great, but for pure beginner ease, Mint laps them. I'll break down a few popular ones with pros, cons, and why they're tougher for new users. First up, Ubuntu. Mint is actually based on Ubuntu, so they're cousins, but Mint edges it out. Ubuntu ships with GNOME Desktop, which is modern but feels alien if you're from Windows or Mac. No traditional taskbar, weird gestures, and extensions needed for basic customizations. GNOME feels unfamiliar, more tweaks needed out of the box. The pros of Ubuntu. It's beginner-friendly-ish, with a solid app store and good hardware support. The cons. That GNOME interface isn't as intuitive. I spent time configuring it just to feel normal. Mint Cinnamon is superior right away, making tasks like file management or multitasking easier without extras. If you're switching from Windows, Ubuntu might frustrate you more. Next, Fedora with GNOME. I tried this one and it needed work. Out of the box, it wasn't snappy on my setup, and GNOME again, not my favorite coming from Windows Mac. Some of the pros: fresh packages and strong security focus. It also looks beautiful. Some of the cons: it took configuring to run right. Drivers didn't auto-install like Mint, and customization felt limited even after tweaks. Not ideal if you just want something that works. Debian: solid, but Mint's more intuitive. Pros: rock solid stability. Cons: updates are slower and the default setup needs more polish. Mint builds on Debian base via Ubuntu, but adds beginner-friendly layers. Now, Arch-based distros like Vanilla Arch, EndeavourOS, or Manjaro, not for beginners. I dove into these after Mint, including Arch itself, and I loved them. Some of the pros: bleeding edge, total control, great for learning, like I wanted after 4 years on Mint. Cons: rolling releases mean constant updates that can break things. Vanilla Arch: you install from command line, adding everything yourself. Desktop, drivers, apps. Daunting if you're used to Windows just booting up and ready to go. I broke my Arch setup updating libraries, spending hours fixing via terminal. If you're not terminal comfy, steer clear. Even user-friendly Arch spins like Endeavour need more hand-holding than Mint. Pop! OS? Close contender, but GNOME again. Although I did enjoy Pop's version of GNOME before they switched it to the Cosmic desktop. It's a solid OS. Pros: excellent hardware support, especially NVIDIA. Better than Mint in some cases. Some of the cons: still requires post-install configs for optimal use, and it's not as Windows-like as Mint's Cinnamon. Zorin OS mimics Windows well, but felt bloated compared to Mint's snappiness. And don't get me started on specialized ones like Kali or Parrot. They're for security pros, not daily drivers. Full of tools, but overwhelming for basics and can pose a security risk. Overall, these distros often force terminal use, have unfamiliar desktops, or need tweaks for drivers and hardware. Mint? Minimal hassle, especially with AMD like mine. Though NVIDIA users enable those proprietary drivers early to avoid glitches. Quick tips from my 4 years. Don't expect Linux to be exactly like Windows or Mac. You can't run native Windows apps without tools like Wine or Proton. I spent hours troubleshooting Steam games that wouldn't launch, fiddling with Proton settings. But for the most stuff, there are Linux alternatives. Or run Windows in a VM via VirtualBox. Super easy in Mint. If you want a daily driver that just works, stick to basics. Don't tinker unless you're ready for terminal time. I learned the hard way. Breaking drivers or games meant forum dives or AI chats. And hardware? My AMD GPU was plug and play. But NVIDIA can be finicky. Check forums pre-install. After 4 years on Mint and now loving CachyOS's speed and KDE for video editing, Kdenlive runs glitch-free here, I still say Linux Mint is the best beginner distro. Why? Familiar Cinnamon desktop, out-of-the-box functionality, tools like Timeshift for easy fixes, simple installation, and it teaches Linux gently without forcing the terminal. You get stability, customizability, and community support. Perfect for ditching Windows bloat. If you're on Windows and fed up, switch to Mint today. Not loving your current distro? Give Mint a spin. It's free. Download it, try it live from a USB, and see. If this helps, smash the like button. Subscribe for more Linux tips, and drop in the comments what's holding you back from switching. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.